Well, Sean, thank you so much for joining me on this episode of Lunch with a Leader. It is an honor to have you.
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate being here a lot.
It's been so fun learning about you. We've never had the opportunity to meet. We've got some mutual friends, but man, learning about you, it's like God designed the perfect person for this call because faith and business intersect in your life, don't they?
They do in many, many ways, as I'm sure we'll talk about here today.
You've got a great podcast, The Kingdom Driven CEO, which we're going to hit on a little bit later in our episode. But when you were growing up in a little small town on a farm, where did you see your life going at that point? What did you think grown up Sean was going to be doing with his life?
Yeah, that is a great question. I really didn't know. I remember, I was the raker. So if any of you are familiar with how baling hay works, somebody cuts the grass down and then somebody rakes it into windrows and then somebody bales it. Well, the person in the baler has air condition. They are at the top of the heap. That was my dad. The rake guy is in this old farm tractor with exhaust in my face any direction that I drove. And so I remember I would think about, I wonder what my future will be. And I thought that it might be going back and working with my dad on the ranch. I love cattle and the uh, performance breeding and making them better over time. I thought that was really fun. I dated a girl whose father was the local bank president there in Beggs, Oklahoma. Amazingly, Regent Bank grows more in a day than that total bank was. But I used to look at that and think, man, if I could be like Ralph
Mm.
and he's got this big corner office and, he's the man around town, that would be pretty amazing. But I really didn't know until I graduated from college kind of what I wanted to do.
So you think about that time as a raker. What did you learn doing that shaped who you are today? What are some takeaways? Because we say this on this call all the time. God never wastes our time and he never wastes our experiences. What were some of those experiences you got then that shaped the Sean that now leads this massive bank and what God's doing through you that we're going to get into later? What were some of your takeaways that you learned?
There are a lot of things, the work ethic,
Mm.
for sure, because as you know, on a farm, there are no hours. You start when the sun comes up and you come home when the sun comes down. We'd get up in the middle of the night, if we had to assist a cow having a baby, or cows getting out. It was so definitely work ethic. Our hardest day here doesn't even compare
Mm.
to what it was like on the farm. But the other one I think was being able to get along with all kinds of people.
Mm.
So we would have people come to our ranch and they would buy cattle and they would be very sophisticated kind of, business owners. And then we'd have hired hands who were helping us haul hay, that had a elementary school education. And so you just kind of learned how to deal with all kinds of people and frankly, to value all kinds of people.
Mm.
I began to realize that, the person that is helping us buck hay bales is just as important and special as the millionaire that came out to buy bulls for their herd. So those would probably be two big ones. The farm is a great way. It was a great way to grow up
Mm.
for sure.
Yeah, and I'm sure there are days now that you look back and go, God, I am sure glad I'm not a raker anymore. I'm sure glad
Yeah,
no matter what I'm
yeah.
going through.
When it's 110
Oh,
degrees here in
goodness.
Oklahoma, or it's ice and I'm like, boy, this office with heat is pretty fantastic. Now there are days when I'm like, man, I'd trade my dad today. It's 70
Yep.
degrees and he doesn't have people issues. It's just him and the cows and I thought, man, there are days when that seems pretty nice, but the Lord has really put me in a place where I get to just have so much impact and meet so many people. And I think, hopefully bring him into so many different arenas that I feel really blessed with my life.
When did your faith really begin to take root? Because I know your faith is a massive part of your life and part of your story. When did that germ and that seed, germination of your faith seed, really begin to grow in your life?
So I grew up in a Southern Baptist church, the First Baptist Church of Beggs. Honestly, I initially accepted Jesus Christ out of fear because we were watching this rapture video, and I was so scared. I didn't want to get left behind. So man, I ran down there as fast as I could. But really, my relationship with Jesus Christ really changed in two different ways. The first one was we bought Regent Bank when I was 34 years old. This was back in April 1st of 2008. And I'll give you the short version of a long story, but the bank should have gone under 10 months later. The mortgage crisis hit. We began to lose a lot of money. I had always really struggled with scarcity. On the
Mm,
farm, we would be okay financially, and then we would struggle, and then we would be okay. And that, for some reason, I was just really scripted around the fact that, um, things were going to go bad. No, no, the higher I went, the further I felt like I had to fall.
mm,
And I just felt like something bad was going to happen through much of my life. It was really very interesting. But when I was 34, I really had a miracle. So I was in church and the band was singing the song Healer. I believe you're my healer. I believe you're more than enough for me. As I stood there, there was really no healing occurring in my life. The bank had lost enormous amounts of money. I had called all my shareholders to ask if they would put additional capital in to keep us from being shut down. They all said that they couldn't. I was broke. Angela and I had put everything into the bank. And the Lord spoke to me in that church setting and said that He would be my healer. He
mm.
said, everything's going to be okay. I will be your healer. 2 days later, we had this stack of letters that would go out to our shareholders that said, guys, if we don't raise $3 million by the end of this quarter, which was about 40 days away, we're going to get shut down because we're below our minimum capital levels. 400 banks had been shut down. There was no question we were going to be next. And so, literally, my assistant is walking out the door with these letters. The phone rings and it's the U.S. Treasury Department on the line.
Mm.
I yell at Sandy and I say, "Hey, Sandy, you might as well bring those letters back because it's too late. They've already seen our numbers and this is it." I walk around, I pick up the phone. The lady on the other end says, "Mr. Kouplen, this is Lisa Taylor with the U.S. Treasury Department. And the reason we're calling today is because Regent Bank has been chosen for our capital purchase program, and we would like to invest $3 million in your bank, which is the exact amount of money that we needed to stay afloat." And it truly was the miracle of my life. And of course, since that time, we've grown 25x and got hundreds of employees. And, now I'm this great leader, even though I'm doing the same thing I was doing back when we were about to go under. And so that really changed
Mm.
my life. I began to learn how much God loved me, how much He really cared about me, how I could trust Him. So that was an enormous breakthrough for me. And then about 10 years ago, I was invited into a discipleship program here in Tulsa. It's called The Journey. And I began to learn about abiding with Jesus, having an intimate relationship with Him. And that really changed everything. Everything that we have done since, from a faith perspective and integrating it into our business, has all been leadings that I felt like I've been given from the Lord. And now I'm really just kind of trying to obey. I'm trying to just listen and obey. And all of these things have happened as a result of that. So that's really what changed my life.
That's a powerful story because I think all of us, I remember Henry and Richard Blackaby saying in Experiencing God, we all come to a crisis of belief. And when you stood there that day and you heard that song by Carrie Job, Healer, and you thought, well, that's great for everybody else, but it's not for me. It's not working for me. Let's play that out a different way. What if life had never been bad? What if you had grown 25x from the minute at 34 you bought the bank and now you're sitting where you sit today, never facing adversity, never facing up to the scarcity mentality? What would be different about Sean if you hadn't have gone through that crucible that you went through during that time?
So on Monday, so we started a daily devotional, as you know, about eight years ago, and it has touched almost 250,000
Mm.
people. It's a wild story. But I lead on Mondays and Tuesdays now. I used to lead every day, but I found out I was telling these same stories over and over. I only have one
My
set of
church feels that
watchers.
way every Sunday.
I don't see how you guys do it. I don't see how you do it. So, but on Monday, ironically, the lesson, the devotional was on thanking God for your problems.
Mm,
Thank
mm,
Him for your problems. And I was like, man, I got the bad end of the stick on this deal. What a terrible devotional to have to lead. And as I got up early and I was praying through it, and the Lord showed me this very question, what you are asking me.
mm.
Because here's what would have happened had I not gone through it. And, my wife is a cancer survivor. We had multiple miscarriages. I mean, we've had all kinds of challenges within our lives together. What he showed me is that if those things hadn't happened, I would still be trying to live life
Mm,
on my own wisdom, on my own
that's
strength,
good.
on my own thinking that it was all about me. And it never has been. And what these episodes have shown me is it's really all about him. And so I don't have the control. Honestly, the key, and I know you have a lot of business leaders that listen to or that watch your podcast, listen to your podcast. The I will tell you the breakthrough for me, Mike, came when I realized um, I don't really have that much control. Really all I can do on a day-to-day basis is the best I can do.
That's
I
right.
just ask Jesus for guidance. I try to follow as best I can. I have good days and bad days, just like everybody else. But the pressure that is released when you realize that is such a game changer, because otherwise, I used to pull up to this big building and we have hundreds of employees here. And I would think about I was responsible for all these families and oh my goodness, what if this happens? And I mean, I would just drive myself crazy. And at that moment when we had the bank was healed and I was healed financially, and I just realized, you know what, I'm really not in control here.
Mm,
I am really, we always say, Jesus is our CEO.
yeah.
I'm in middle management. I'm between him and the rest of our team. And if I continue to function in that way, we do really well. When I began to think that I've got to figure it all out, that's when I tend to struggle. So it really has changed everything about my life.
What would you say to a leader that goes, man, I think that sounds awesome, but I'm afraid if I give up control, it will change my career trajectory. It will change my influence. It will hurt what I feel like I'm good at. What would you say to them?
Yeah, I would say to them that there is a whole world here that most people never get to see.
Mm,
And I share your passion about bringing your faith into your business. And the reason that I do is because I have seen the before and I have seen the after. And the after is indescribable.
Mm.
I almost wish, I've asked the Lord so many times, how can I, please expand? And I'm so grateful for this opportunity, because what I pray is, Lord, please expand my ability to show people what this can be like. It is almost like, the veil is torn away and you begin to see. Let me just give you one example to share with that business owner that you're talking about. We had a new employee meeting, luncheon about a week ago. And I meet with all of our new employees once a month and we grab lunch together. It's real fun. And so I always have them tell their stories. So they go around, and this lady about 3 seats down from me says, Sean, I just got to tell you, before I tell my story, I just have to tell you that in 34 years of working, this is the only place I have ever felt loved
Mm.
before. So I thought, man, that is awesome. Well, the lady next to her said, yeah, I'll one up you. I've been alive for 57 years, and this is the first time in my life I've ever felt loved, period, is at this place. And so what you begin to realize, and oh, by the way, we grow 25% a year, in an industry that grows 3, and we don't have any turnover, and we get all the best places to work
Mm.
stuff, and
Mm.
spouses come up and tell me how their lives have changed because their spouse is actually happy when they come home from work. And I mean, we're not perfect. Business is difficult. It's not as if it's just a panacea for everything, but it is so different. And so I just wish that for everybody. So you may think that you're giving up something by turning your business over to Jesus, but I would tell you the opposite is going to happen. You're going to see results both all the way around that you never even imagined.
So we live in a incredibly secular world. We live in a world where faith can almost be a dividing line. Just saying that we are Christ followers is a dividing line. How do you manage that tension in the world of the I mean you have shareholders, right? You have lots of people
Right.
that are behind you and lots of employees that may not believe like you. How do you manage that tension that you walk every day?
Yeah, I think very simply, you're just offering.
Mm, that's good.
All you are doing is offering. That's been the game changer, is for me to understand that legally, there is the law says that I cannot require you to worship my way, and I cannot discriminate against you based upon your beliefs. Okay. Well, nobody wants to do that anyway.
Yep.
That's not my desire anyway. So what we do is we build our culture around simply offering. So would you like to join? Hey, everybody, you're invited to our daily devotional. Hey, everybody, we're going to start a prayer team. Would you be interested in joining that prayer team? Can we pray for you? How can we pray for you? Would you like to attend this Bible study? It's all just offering. And
Good.
I also, honestly, Mike, really, really stress the fact that I don't want anybody to feel uncomfortable
Mm,
here. So I will say this over and over and over, if guys, listen, if anything ever makes you feel like we're forcing something on you, you let me know.
mm,
Or if you, in your faith, if you want to have a study or a prayer time, you do that. I'm not trying to push anybody away. I'm simply wanting to offer what I believe has been the game changer in my life to others. And so that's how we navigate it. Now, I will tell you, there are consequences for being as overt. Our core purpose as an organization is to show God's love to our employees, clients, and communities. We're very overt about this. We say on the front page of our website, following our faith-based values. I mean, I'm not, the Lord showed me I was very concerned about being too overt about this. I didn't want people to think that I was trying to use
Hmm.
Jesus as a marketing tool, particularly, we're in Oklahoma, Missouri, and Texas,
Yep.
which is a pretty Christian centric, place. And so I just didn't want it to look like, but the Lord showed me that I was basically hiding him, hiding the light under the bucket or under the bushel. And I needed to be honest about how I felt. And so that has had some consequences. So I have shareholders who don't believe there's any place for faith in business, and they had a desire to sell their shares, and we bought them back. I have people that won't invest with us because of our faith stance. I have people that don't want to do business with us because of our faith stance. I have people that do.
That's right.
I have
Yeah.
people that are very attracted to that. I don't really care. Really, the way I look at it is I'm going to be obedient. The chips are going to fall where they may. And as long as I am following the law and not making anybody feel uncomfortable, I feel, very confident in what we are doing and very proud of what we are doing.
I heard you in another interview. You talked about a time sitting around a dinner table when you heard people that were in the bank, I believe they were in the banking world, talk about how much they hated going to work and how even at the age you heard that, you thought, I don't want that to be the case. How much do you think about that? So, my mom was in banking 36 years. She worked at
Okay.
one bank in a little town in Fayetteville, Georgia for 36 years. She banked at her funeral. It was just a trail of lives that she had touched in banking through those years. So I know the power of that influence. What still drives you today to make your place somewhere everybody goes, I'm so excited to get up and go to work?
That conversation is what drives me. That was my family.
Wow.
That conversation you're speaking of was actually my mom and dad. My dad worked with my grandfather on the farm, and they were always at it over something. And then my mom was a teller at our
Mm,
our
yep.
local bank there in Beggs, and they didn't have a great culture, and everybody kind of a backstabbing kind of
Yep.
a culture, and they'd force us to sit down and have family dinner, and it was miserable,
Yep.
because the whole thing was really just them griping about their jobs the whole time. And I just at a very young age thought, man, is this what work is? I mean, is this how it has to be when you work? Do you have to hate what you
Mm,
do every day? And I just always told the Lord, I said, if you would ever give me the opportunity to lead an organization, I would love to. I will do my best to make sure that when people go home, they can speak highly of where they work, and they're not all exhausted and stressed out whenever they get home. And so now, our growth trajectory makes people probably pretty tired when they get home, but
yep.
I think they're happy. We're very generous. We're very transparent in the way we run the organization. We're fully open about finances, strategies. We try to be very caring. And so that still drives me to this day. That is the most important thing to me. I love the growth. I love the fact that the shareholders are happy. I love all that, and I do love the fact that we are able to be a light into the world. Those two now are probably neck and neck. I'm
Mm,
motivated by being, a well-known kingdom business where people can look to us as an example, but still right on par with that is making sure everybody enjoys their job. It feels appreciated, knows how much we love them on a personal level. I mean, I literally had a loan officer this morning. I visited with him yesterday, and he's like, "Thanks so much for coming by." And he closes the text with, "I love you so much."
wow.
And I close the text back with, "I love you so much." I mean, and he's three rungs down from me, and that's the kind of relationship that we have.
Mm,
I love that. I love that.
that's fantastic. And it's so funny how a seed like that gets planted, and you can either lean into it and repeat it, or you can go, I'm going to learn from it and go and do something different, which you've been able to do. When was the first time you thought, I think there might be something in me to lead? I think I could be a leader. Was there a certain transformative event in your life, or was it sort of an ongoing curtain coming up on Sean as a leader?
No, it was interestingly enough in FFA. Did
How
you
about
guys have
that?
FFA growing
We
up?
sure did. We sure
For
did.
those that may not be familiar, it stood for Future Farmers of America. It was basically ag
Yep.
class in school, and they obviously it's just FFA now because it's a lot of speaking and leadership. And my FFA instructor really encouraged me to lead, and I was president of our chapter meeting team, and took a leadership role, and thought, man, uh, I really like this. I
Mm,
feel like people, you know, um, they listen to me. I tend to be able to guide and direct. They'll follow me. I thought, man, this just feels very, very natural. And then it really took root in college,
mm,
where I had a number of leadership positions, and it just really became obvious that that was a gifting that the Lord had given me. I'm not the most imposing. My voice is a little bit soft. I'm not, and I'm no Martin Luther King, standing
right.
up here. But I do love people. And I think they know that the Lord has given me great vision and strategy, and the ability to kind of bring a team along around that vision and strategy. And it has just been, it really kind of is mind blowing, to be honest with you. I mean, I was commerce secretary over all the business stuff in the state of Oklahoma. I got hundreds of employees. I mean, from Beggs, Oklahoma, population 1,000. I had 42 in my class. I just could have never even dreamed
Mm.
a life like this, but God has really blessed us a lot.
And I know you have an immense love for your bride and your children, and I know you are in the road a lot to ball games and heading different places. How do you balance? How do you balance being a people driven leader and while still trying to be present and a people driven dad and husband at home? How do you manage that?
Yeah, this is where your viewership can learn from me what not to do.
Mm, mm,
Okay, very early in my marriage, we had a little baby girl. She was about 2 years old. I was in this scarcity mindset where I thought the solution to having security at work was to be all things to all people. So I was the president of the local chamber, United Way, YMCA, blah, 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 and you name it. I was everything. And so I was gone all the time. I was at meetings all the time. And my wife would remind me about every 90 days that a marriage was actually supposed to be a partnership, that she wasn't the house cleaner and nanny, and that I should actually be there, that
yep.
we were supposed to be married together. So I do better for a couple of weeks, and then I would, to use an old Baptist term, backslide
Yep.
back into my own ways. And one day I pulled up, and she was packed up and getting ready to go to her mom's. And thankfully, I got home early that day, begged her to stay. And in that moment, I thought, what are you
Mm,
doing?
mm,
What am I doing? Who do you think what are you climbing to the top of the ladder for if you're going to be all alone and not even have your family,
mm,
to share it with? And so I am really, really big on boundaries. So at 6:30, every night, my phone is put away, it's plugged in. I do not take calls, texts, etc. After 6:30. I focus fully on my family. I don't work on the weekends. If it's something really, really urgent, I'll just get up real early before everybody else is awake.
Yep.
You know,
Yep.
they don't care. They're all asleep. So what I do before then doesn't really bother them. And so I will do that sometimes, but that's pretty rare. I coach Little League Baseball, so I'm doing that all weekend, every weekend. And then, my goal then during the week is to be hyper productive, delegate well. I got an amazing executive team, an executive assistant. And my belief is that, I pray over my day every day. And when I'm guided well and listening well, I can get everything done and not have to infringe upon family time and be able to keep those boundaries.
And I think we have all hit that wall. I think every leader, if they were honest, they were as honest as you were, has they may not have come home with the clothes packed, but they entered the Cold War when they opened the door and the house is
Yes.
frigid and the temperature is at 78, but the house is frigid because we all have to figure out that line. Final question today, Sean. This has just been you are just a joy to get to speak to. Um, the Bible says in the book of Acts, David served his purpose in his generation and he went to sleep. What do you believe is the purpose God created Sean Kouplen for in his generation?
Well, first of all, thank you for just a wonderful interview. Man, you're a pro. I'll tell you, I've done a lot of these, and this is as meaningful
Thank
a
you.
time as I've had. Um, there is no question in my mind the answer to this your question. And I'll just kind of give you a little bit of background on how I got to this purpose. So, I had served as Secretary of Commerce here in Oklahoma for about 3 years. One of my closest friends is our governor, and so I had helped him in that role, and was still continuing to kind of guide the bank. And it was pretty wild. It was pretty chaotic. It was very, very stretching. So I got to the end of my term, and I began to pray about, so all of a sudden I had all of this excess capacity.
Mm.
Now, my team here at the bank had risen up. They were really running it on a day-to-day basis. They had done an amazing job. And I just felt this chapter turning
Mm.
in my life. So I prayed, 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 prayed. What is it? What is it, Lord? What is the next chapter? And what the Lord showed me was what you do on this podcast. It was the intersection between faith and business.
Mm.
That what we had experienced here needed to be the purpose of my life needed to be to share that with the world. Well, what happened was about 8 years ago, the Lord called me to do this devotional, start this devotional that I mentioned to you earlier.
Yep.
And I dismissed it because I thought it was illegal.
Mm.
I thought, and I'm telling you, 9 out of 10 people believe this too, that it's illegal to bring your faith into your work. So he basically showed me, hey, you were wrong 8 years ago. I showed you the right path. Now I need you to show others that right
Mm.
path. So
Mm.
it led to the development of a faith and work movement called 94X. And 94X has gone wild. And I want to mention this because it is free. And if any of your listeners are interested, we would love to support them in their faith journey. Okay. 94xmovement.com. 94xmovement.com is our website. And basically, we have an online community where business leaders help each other bring their faith into their business. We have roundtables that gather on a monthly basis, and we are about 60 days out from rolling out a Faith at Work certification. So if a company wants to go to the next level and bringing in their faith, we're creating a curriculum that they can bring our coaches in, or they can go on their own and basically do an online digital curriculum, which basically shows you here's what the law says, here's what the Bible says,
Mm.
here's examples of all different kind of businesses and what they have done. And if you will certify that you're going to take a step forward in some way. It can be something really small.
Yep.
Me and you doing a Bible study in the conference room. It can be that, some step, then you will receive the certification. And so my belief is the Lord has given me a vision that there will be 100,000 certified companies by 2030 all over the world. And we have a number of individuals who are going to help us get the word out all over the globe about this. And so that is 100% my purpose. It's when I feel the most fulfilled, is when I am able to bring, I get every day, I get 5, 10, 20 letters, emails, texts from people going, I just got one this morning. And the guy said, we had a prayer meeting at our work. It was voluntary and we had 100% participation. He texted me this morning. And I mean, it's just when the light bulb comes on, oh man, there's just nothing like it. Nothing like it.